Imagine this. It's Monday morning, you're tired, so you stop by a cafe and buy a $10 latte before heading to work. It doesn't seem like a big deal, right? You'd probably say, it's just coffee. But here's the thing. This is a question most people rarely ask. What if that little habit is quietly costing you over $1,200 a year? And no, this isn't one of those lectures. Stop buying coffee and you'll get rich. Honestly, that advice misses the real point. Here's the thing. According to consumer spending data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average person spends over $1,100 a year on coffee outside the home. Now, if your latte costs around $10 and you buy it just 3 times a week, that's about $120 a month. In a year, yes, about $1,200. The point of the story isn't about coffee. It's about what that money could do if invested. Think of money as an employee. Every dollar you spend today is an employee you're firing. Every dollar you invest becomes an employee working for you forever. So instead of spending $120 a month, you're better off investing it. The S&P 500's average long-term return has been around 10% per year over the past century. If you invest that coffee money for 20 years, you won't just have $28,000. You'll have around $90,000. All of that comes from something most people call just coffee. Now listen, I'm not saying you should never buy a latte again. That's not the point. The point is awareness. Because even small habits aren't small anymore when repeated thousands of times. This is the approach taken by smart people. They don't waste money on indulgences. Instead, they prioritize investing. Set aside money for investing first before you start funding your lifestyle. That way, you can still enjoy a cup of coffee while your money quietly builds your future behind the scenes. Imagine this. You're about to apply for a loan and your first reaction is panic. Debt is bad. Debt will ruin your life. Stay away from loans. If that sounds like you, you're not alone. Most people grow up hearing the same rule. Avoid debt at all costs. But here's the strange part. Some of the richest people in the world are actually obsessed with debt. In fact, according to Federal Reserve data, the wealthiest Americans actually have more debt than the average household. What's really going on here? Why do the rich love something that terrifies the rest of us? Here's the thing. Most people treat debt like fire, dangerous, something you shouldn't touch. But the wealthy treat debt like electricity. If used wrong, it can destroy you. But if used right, it powers everything. Let me show you the difference. Imagine 2 people taking out the exact same $50,000 loan. The first person uses it to buy a new luxury car. Comfortable leather seats, glossy paint. It smells amazing. But the moment they drive it off the lot, the car starts losing value every single day. That loan is now tied to something that keeps losing value. That's bad debt. Now, the second person takes that same $50,000 and buys a small rental property or invests in a business. That asset starts generating income every month. Now, the debt is tied to something that keeps growing. That's good debt. And this is the part that most people often overlook. Rich people don't like debt. They love using debt to buy assets. It's like using a crowbar to lift a heavy object. The tool itself isn't magic. It simply gives you more power than your own money. However, here's a rule rich people follow that almost no one else does. Never use debt to buy something that drains money from your pocket. Use it only to buy things that generate income for you, because when debt is tied to income-generating assets, that debt stops being a burden and begins to become one of the fastest wealth-building tools in the world. You've probably heard this many times in your life. Just save up $1 million and you can retire comfortably. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Just hit that 7-figure mark and you're set. But what if that number is completely outdated? Here's the unpleasant truth. $1 million today no longer holds the same value as it used to. According to long-term data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, average inflation is around 3% per year. That number might sound small, but over time, inflation slowly erodes purchasing power. It's like a slow leak in a tire. You don't notice it, but eventually you won't be able to go anywhere. Let's break this down. If you retire with $1 million and follow the popular 4% rule, you can safely withdraw about $40,000 per year. but that's before taxes. Now try subtracting healthcare, housing, food, and insurance costs. Suddenly, that comfortable retirement you envisioned starts to look a lot tighter, and here's the worst part. Average life expectancy is nearing the late 70s, and many retirees need their money to last for 20 to 30 years. In other words, your $1 million isn't just funding a lifestyle, it's funding decades of life. Now combine that with inflation, which keeps rising over time, and your $40,000 a year slowly starts to feel like $25,000, then $20,000 in today's terms. That's the lie. It doesn't mean that $1 million is useless, but it's no longer enough. So what do people who truly retire comfortably do differently? They don't rely on just one pile of money. They build multiple sources of income. Think dividends, rental income, businesses, investments that keep generating income for you even after you stop working. Because retirement isn't about reaching a certain number. It's about building a cash flow that never stops. So instead of asking, how do I reach $1 million? Start asking a better question. How do I build income that lasts longer than my life? That's what will change everything. Have you ever felt like you've done everything right when it comes to your finances? You avoid eating out, don't buy unnecessary items, and set aside a portion of every paycheck. Yet your bank balance still seems to be going nowhere. Yes, you're not the only one. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. Saving alone won't make you rich. In fact, if you rely solely on saving, you might actually fall behind. I understand saving feels safe. It feels responsible and like progress. But here's the problem. Your money sits still while everything else keeps moving. According to long-term data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation averages around 2 to 3% per year. That means every dollar you save slowly loses its value each year. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a small hole at the bottom. You keep pouring water in, but the bucket never really fills up. Now compare that to how wealthy people think. They don't just save their money, they invest it. Saving is like parking your car. Investing is like using that car as an Uber driver, making money while you sleep. And here's the interesting part. The S&P 500's long-term average return is around 8 to 10% per year. While inflation quietly erodes the value of your money, investing quietly multiplies it. And over 10, 20, or 30 years, that difference becomes enormous. We're talking about the difference between a few $1,000s and true wealth. Don't get me wrong, saving is important. It's your safety net. It's your emergency cushion. But saving was never designed to make you rich. Saving is designed to protect you, not to grow your wealth. So here's the shift you need to make. Stop thinking, how much can I save? Start thinking, how much can I consistently invest? Because wealth isn't built by hoarding money. Wealth is built by putting money into things that grow faster than inflation. And once you understand that, you stop working for money and start making money work for you. You wake up, check your phone, and feel it right away. Another work day. You wake up, rush through traffic, sit at your desk for 8 hours, come home exhausted, and tell yourself, at least I get paid. And that sounds normal, because that's what everyone does. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if that 9-to-5 job you rely on is actually what's keeping you stuck? Here's the problem. Your income is directly tied to your time. You work 8 hours, you get paid for 8 hours, you stop working, the money stops. It's like being on a treadmill. You can run faster, work harder, put in more hours, but you're still in the same place. According to labor data, wages have grown far slower than the cost of living over the past few decades. So even if your salary goes up, your expenses usually rise faster. That's why so many people feel like they're working harder but getting nowhere. Now add taxes to the equation. Before your money even hits your account, most of it has already been deducted. Then rent, food, transportation, and subscriptions at the end of the month. There's almost nothing left. So you repeat this cycle. Work, get paid, spend, repeat. That's the salary trap. And the reason this is so dangerous is that it feels safe. You have a consistent income, a predictable paycheck, but there's no real leverage. Because here's the truth most people overlook. You don't get rich by trading your time for money. You get rich by building a system that generates money without your time. That could be an investment, a side business, assets that generate income in the background. Because once you have income that isn't tied to your work hours, that's when everything changes. So don't quit tomorrow. Make the most of it. Use your salary as a tool to build something that will eventually replace it. Because the goal isn't to work forever. The goal is to reach the point where your money works harder than you do.